Hello, everyone. I'm Captain Logan. Welcome to another new movie review. We're broadcasting live once again. Joining me tonight is my panel of Austin the Day Ghost
What's up?
and Connor Nielsen.
Hello, everybody. How are y'all?
Thanks for joining me, gentlemen. Tonight we're gonna talk. We're gonna tell you how we felt about Everything Everywhere All at Once. I didn't label this as a spoiler cast, mainly because I wanted to. I didn't want to discourage people who haven't seen the movie from clicking on this video, because this is a somewhat smaller movie, of course, than things we usually do on the show. For a long time, I've been a lot more selective about what I review brand new just when it comes out, and I mostly tackled stuff that either I go see and really want to talk about, or really, and I don't do everything anymore, but just major stuff, especially superhero stuff that I know people are going to want me to talk about and that I kind of want to weigh in on. This was a thing that was kind of off my radar that I had no intention of seeing, and I was inundated with messages from people, including Austin. I think Connor might have also said something about it. Cap, you have to see this movie. It was kind of made for you. And I saw the previews for this movie and was not interested. I was like, okay, so the multiverse is turning into the new time travel. Everybody's going to have to weigh in on that and do something with that whole idea. And it looked just kind of, quirky for the sake of quirky. And I was like, that might be fun, but I don't know about Michelle Yeoh anymore after Discovery. Like, I really don't want to deal with this movie. And then I finally decided to go see it. I was a little bit worried that I wouldn't find a movie theater that still had it because it's been out for a few weeks now, but luckily I was able to go this weekend, and here we are. So we're going to do a regular old-fashioned how we felt about section, and we usually do this kind of on Spoilercast anyway, but what we'll do is we'll do our sign flip, best thing, worst thing, and talk the movie out a little bit without massive spoilers, and then if folks are really engaging us in the comments, we can do a bit of a spoiler section at the end, but this doesn't have to be a full-blown, like, let's talk about every nook and cranny. This does not have to be a 2-hour video, most assuredly.
Well, now that you said it,
it
that's what
probably
it's
will
gonna
be.
be.
I
You
know,
just
but I'm just
brought
saying
it
it
into
doesn't
being.
have to.
Everybody
Well,
poked in the comments about how this is over 2 hours.
and but now that we have said it aloud and thought it, there is another version of this conversation that does go on for 2 hours. So thank you, Kat. We
There's
really
also a
appreciate it.
version of this that stops right now. We all just hit hang up and it's over.
Well,
That's
and
true.
And there's also a version where we're just rocks.
yeah, and there's probably a version where, like, we're all pop figures, too. Now that I've put the pop figure up, that happened somewhere. See, there wasn't the version, Austin, where we go on for at least 2 hours until I said that, and then we created that universe in which that happens.
Except, spoiler alert, it's this universe.
You're,
That's
you,
the twist.
you're welcome, universe that did. Oh, that's a good point.
Oh, it
What
was
you
our
don't.
universe. That was a real Rod Sterling twist, you know that.
Yeah. Anyway, let's just go ahead and get right into this. As I mentioned a minute ago, this is a movie about a multiverse. It stars Michelle Yeoh, and as I often do, I'm going to make Austin give us a little bit of a non-spoiler synopsis for this movie before we let, I think, Connor tell us first how he felt about this one. So go ahead, Austin. Tell us a little bit about what this movie's about for folks that have not had a chance to take a look at it yet.
So this is a movie that is about everything, everywhere, and all at once. It is,
Nothing has more lived up to its title than this movie.
yeah, no, exactly. No, it's a huge multiverse movie that's just a very intricate drama between a family, like a woman, her husband, her daughter, and her father, and it's just you just kind of look at those different personalities and their relationships, and you really just kind of focus in on that, but in the guise of like a big science fiction kind of epic on like A24 style. But even then, like they get pretty big for even their budget. Like I think this had a budget of like 15 million. And
Wow,
that's
really?
basically
I
it,
meant to
yeah.
look that up, and it's all on the screen and then some. Like, if that's all this
Yeah.
cost, they're cheating somehow. They
Well, I
went to
think
some
there's,
other
like,
universes and
yeah.
stole money.
Yeah, like I think there's like whole interviews and stuff where the directors talk about how they had to like figure out how to do, like Marvel size effects with like two people. and like how to make that work.
Yeah, that goes to a thing I want to talk about a little bit later. But Austin, like, have you ever seen anything this minimalistic and also this ambitious all at the same time? Like, it's a movie all about contradictions, and I feel like the way the thing is made is a giant contradiction.
Yeah, no, like obviously, there's kind of one or two like big locations that we go to a lot, but there's a lot of just bigger stuff that, like you said, the money's definitely there. And it doesn't feel like, say, like a Marvel movie where it's like a Ponzi scheme to give an actor like $80 million, and then they have like $5 left for the movie.
No, I mean, you mentioned Rod Serling. It has that sensibility, right? Where the Twilight Zone thing to some degree, where it's this huge, high concept, massive scale and scope, with made in the most minimalistic way possible. At least through a lot of it. And then there's just some really impressive effects that I don't know how they got away with on that budget. Noah just put in a $5 super chat and said, I have the urge to rewatch Ratatouille for some reason. We'll get there.
Yeah, but that's basically it. I have to admit, I should get this out up front. I saw this opening weekend and was hoping to be able to see it again today, but I had a big drive and I was like, oh, like I could maybe just squeeze it in, but I also have been sitting down for like the last several hours. I don't know if I have it in me.
And it's not a short movie.
Yeah,
it's not the Batman, but it's like 2 hours and 20 minutes.
It's not a short movie, and it feels a lot longer.
It does.
Yeah.
No, it absolutely does. Which may be a good thing or a bad thing depending on who you talk to. But we'll get into all of that. Connor, do you want to get us started, sir?
Sure. I guess for my...
Unless you have some qualm with going first. I was just going to give you the floor because Austin gave us the synopsis.
Of course. I've been preparing it ever since you brought it up. So, so for the sign flip here, I'm gonna maybe go on a little bit of a different approach than I usually do. I'm just gonna tell you the story of my experience of watching this movie. So I went to go see this on a Tuesday night because my brother had seen this before and he did not much care for it. And so I tend to agree with my brother on pretty much everything. Like 95% of the movies we watch, we have very similar experiences. So I went to go see it on a Tuesday night because it's a reduced ticket price. And I ended up leaving my home about right as the movie was listed to start, but because of trailers and whatnot, I figured I'd get there before the movie actually began.
You missed the first 15 minutes, didn't you?
I walked in and I missed the first 2 minutes.
Oh, okay.
And so the point is, I walked in and the movie had started, and there are a few things that get under my nails, quite like missing the beginning of a movie. Like, I feel like I'm cheating the filmmakers for doing that. And I felt like it was a rush to get there. And then once I got there, waiting in line to get my ticket, then having to push through. So I was kind of in this like rush, hustle, bustle. And a little more context, I was in the middle of working 18 straight days, where most of those days were 10-hour shifts. And beyond that, I just have not been feeling myself lately. I feel a lot more frustrated, easily agitated, just all around more abrasive, and which is not usually my state. And point is, so I sit down, and right what I'm seeing is Michelle Yeoh, and her life is this overwhelming, flustered, unfulfilling life. And she's most of the way through her life, and I'm not, but at least I hope I'm not. And so immediately I found myself relating to this movie. And as I was watching it, there were things that I found odd and kind of absurdist that I was kind of amused by. But then there were certain aspects where there were certain elements that are kind of integral to a story like this that I have seen in recent films that may or may not be produced by the biggest studio in the world, that I was like, I have right now where I'm at in my life, I have a very high tolerance of being irritated, or a low tolerance of being irritated by this. And then I wasn't. And then I found myself getting emotionally invested very early on. I started feeling a sensation in this thing called a heart. And I was like, wait a minute, I'm not used to this. The point is, the last time I went and saw a film in the theater where I actually cried was in 2016, almost exactly 6 years ago. And Everything Everywhere All at Once made me cry a lot. And I've seen a lot of people in the Discord say that the ending made them cry. I was kind of crying by the halfway point. And the last half of this movie, I had to actually I got annoyed with myself because I was crying so much, because like the oils on my skin started getting in my eye and it started hurting my eyes. So I couldn't look at the screen, and I just wanted to look at this movie. Walking out of this movie, I was filled with a calming joy. I was filled with a sense of affection and love for my common man. Did you use that
word choice on purpose? I just got to ask you that.
I feel like the movie made it on purpose, so
it did.
I feel like
absolutely it did.
It knows what it's doing, and I have not felt that sense of connection to every person that I have ever brushed shoulders with, whether it be a significant relationship or a very minor relationship. I have not felt that since I watched Boyhood for the first time. Now, obviously, I felt it more during Boyhood. That was the first time I'd ever experienced that with a film. But any film that's going to make me feel that way is going to be significant. I loved this film.
And red.
And so, in conclusion,
I'm feeling it, and I can't wait to actually get into the specifics of this.
Yeah.
This was something I needed, and I want to give a big thank you to Daniels, the filmmakers, the duo that made this film. I want to say thank you for making me feel like myself again. This was the antidote to life getting me down that I needed, and I finished those 18 days at work feeling myself. So thank you.
That's really cool, and not a movie that you really have a sense of whether you'll be uplifted or not. Until very late in the game, I would say, not to give too much away, but like this is a movie that could very easily go either direction in optimism or a pessimism kind of place. Senior Sticks put in a $2 super chat. Connor, you look like you might Hulk out soon.
Oh no. Oh no, I'm sorry. Oh dear, I sounded like Austin for a second there. I'm sorry.
You won't like Connor when he's off a several-day work week. Checkers the Inventor just
unless you impress him.
Just put in a $5 super chat and says, a lot to learn from this movie about creativity through limited budget. Twilight Zone is a good comparison. Thanks. Yeah, I was thinking that all the way through. And I'm really sensitive to this because I don't know, I've just always had this appreciation and fascination for minimalism, and maybe that's because if I ever want to make a thing, I've got about $5 to work with, and so I have to figure out, like what I can get away with in as big of a scope as I might want to make a thing, but not make it look so crappy that you're constantly thinking about that, right? Like I had that a lot with Spawn Year, and I don't make movies, but I've had that with things before. And so I'm always hypersensitive to that, and really like 15 minutes in, I was like, the scope of this is so like enormous, and obviously it's like Marvel multiverse big, and the stakes really are the end of everything. But then the real stakes that you actually care about are just as Austin mentioned earlier. Just this intimate relationship between two people and I guess a family at large. And I'm constantly like, how long are we going to be in this office building with as huge as the stakes are? And the stakes never feel smaller because we're in this real, small space. But I don't know. I was also getting vibes from like some early Whedon projects that way too. Like you go back and look at something like Dr. Horrible, where you've got this, it's not this kind of scope, of course, but you're dealing with supervillains and an evil league of evil, and most of it takes place on a backlot, and I've always really appreciated stuff like that, where it feels big, but you're actually working with like $15. Austin, why don't you tell us how you felt about this movie and give us, and Connor didn't give us a straight up best thing, worst thing. Maybe we can get that from him a little bit later, or maybe he doesn't want to go there. Say again?
So if you want to give it now too, that's cool.
Okay, I don't have a worst thing. I mean, if you guys have to know, I give like an 8 out of 10. It's not like there's anything weighing it down. It'll probably go up on rewatches. The best thing is Ki Hui Kwan
Oh,
as
sure.
the husband. He's I started to cry once I realized the significance of that character.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that
And
was
how
like
much did you think that guy, I don't want to get into spoilers yet, thought he was going to get thrown under the bus, or the whole point was going to be he should have never been in her life in the first place, and he's like the linchpin to everything, and I have so much respect for them doing that, and I love that guy, and yeah, no, it was beautiful, and that's a guy that retired from acting years and years ago, and you'd never know it, like, yeah, he's incredible.
I'm actually glad that you brought that up because that's a perfect segue into what I was going to start with my thing.
Let me, real quick before you do that, because I'm trying to actually keep up with Super Chats tonight and not get to them like 45 minutes after the fact. Senior Six just real quick put in a $2 Super Chat and says, is it time for the Spawn Year reboot or remake? No, it's not, although I want to do something for the 10th anniversary. I don't know what yet. Anyway, Austin, go right ahead, sir.
We need a gender swap remake of Spawn Year.
Sarah,
I'm all
you
for
can
that.
do it.
I'll work
I
on
believe in you, Sarah. Come on.
You say that, but she was in the Spawn suit for 1/6 of the show. Like, she's already
which
been
means that you will be in the Spawn suit for 1/6 of the show. Exactly.
Anyway, go ahead, Austin.
So I walked out of this film loving it, like everybody else here, I think, except for Cap. I won't say how he feels about this yet. But I watched it. I was like, this is very good. I also teared up probably about 3/4 of the way through. I don't know exactly when, but I also teared up during this movie, and I had like a very, oh yeah, this is the power of cinema in a year where I look at my film list of this year and it's like 1 star, 1 star, 1 star, 1 star, 1 star, 1 star. And then you get to the top and it's stuff like this and The Northman, where it's like just kind of more indie stuff that's actually really good. But
you assume the only way they come out this year is they must have been made 20 years ago and put in a drawer?
Yeah, and both things that those two movies have in common is that they both bring me back to a nostalgic point in my life without just being like, hey, here's this thing you remember, here it is again. With The Northman, it's my childhood love of like fantasy and mythology especially, and just kind of films about that. And with this film, thanks to Connor, who made this film way better for me, I learned that the husband is Short Round from Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, which is my favorite Spielberg movie, and I adore Short Round. So it was like, this movie's way cooler than I thought it was. Like, that's awesome.
I didn't know who that guy was, but I kept, and I'm not saying he was familiar because of Short Round, and I've only seen that movie a couple times. It was years and years ago. I was not a big Indiana Jones guy growing up, but he had, I thought, this kind of like Jackie Chan kind of sensibility to him. And when he first showed up, I was like, that's not like a de-aged Jackie Chan, is it? And of course it wasn't. But it was interesting to find out, while I kept thinking that originally Michelle Yeoh's role was supposed to be for Jackie Chan. This was supposed to be a Jackie Chan movie. And they decided pretty late in developing it that it would be better that the relationship between the husband and wife would be better served if they flipped it and it was about the wife instead of the husband, and that's why they went to Michelle Yeoh. And they also they wrote it with her in mind once they decided to go with a woman. So they didn't write like a script for Jackie Chan and then just gender swapped it. They hadn't written it yet at the point that they decided that, or they hadn't fully written it. And then when they went to with Michelle Yeoh, they actually wrote it with her character name as Michelle. I think they weren't totally sure if they'd get her or not, but they were like, she was like kind of sort of based on Michelle Yeoh. And she has this wonderful interview where this great quote where she talks about how all of her characters deserve to like live on their own and to have their own stories told about them, and she doesn't want too much of her in them, so she insisted the character's name be changed. And I thought that was cool.
Interesting. Yeah, I didn't know about that. Dan told me an interesting one with actually, I think it was Dan, about Jamie Lee Curtis with this movie, where they gave her the script and she went, yeah, I don't get this. But I guess she still signed on to do it. And while they were filming, she was like, yeah, look, I'm getting it a little bit more, but this doesn't make any sense to me. And then apparently after the screening ended, she walked up to the directors and was like, I'm really sorry. I get it now.
Well, in her defense, that's the hardest character to wrap your mind around on the page, I would imagine, especially given that she has to play the most disparate number of different versions of a character. I think.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense.
Look, I don't know. Did you guys ever see the film Sorry to Bother You? I very quickly. She reminded me of Armie Hammer in that movie in the sense that, oh, we need to get this person an Oscar for this supporting role because it is like a scene-stealing supporting role, and we're not going to do it. But you know what? It's okay. We love you, Jamie Lee. You're amazing.
She's amazing in this, and I love knowing she wasn't sure what she was doing because I couldn't get that from the performance. I mean, she seemed to seemed to ham it up in exactly the right way, like I thought. But I mean, I see why you're saying that, Connor, but I really need Yeoh to get nominated, and I don't think it'll happen. But that's like a career, like I don't know how she ever gives a better performance than that, and I haven't seen a performance like that, and I don't know, like.
Yeah, no, I guess
people love her, but I have more respect for her than I ever have after this. Like,
and yeah, Yeoh and Ke Huy Quan, nominate them, please. Yeah, where I was coming from with Jamie Lee Curtis is that comedic performances tend to be overlooked, and I think as far as like a comedic supporting performance, that is like a great we don't get like a lot of performances and roles try to be this and they fail.
Yeah,
and she is being like the apex of this kind of performance.
That's
the
a great
same
point.
Way I think.
But I'm worried Yeoh will be overlooked for exactly the same reason because she's giving a great dramatic performance, but she's also giving an incredible comedic performance, and just the balance of that is nuts. We're so far ahead of ourselves. Hey, Austin, how'd you feel about this movie?
It was great. I like Connor. I don't really have a worse thing. Like, I gave this a 4.5 out of 5. I could see it going up to 5 on a rewatch. Like, it's really good. Like, just the entire way through, I was like, yeah, I'm glued to this. Like, this is what movies are. You know, it was one of those kinds of movies. And yeah, if this movie doesn't get at the very least a Best Actor or Best Actress nomination at the Oscars, then ooh.
And I mean, maybe it's possible because it's getting more attention than I think anybody expected it to, and word of mouth seems to have been really good for this one.
Yeah, it's A24's like biggest success financially. I think it's made. I was looking it up today. I think it was 38 million.
It's doubled its money so far.
Yeah,
it made more money this weekend than it did last weekend.
Oh, really?
That's wild.
Yeah,
that's interesting.
That never happens. Yeah.
Well, and that sounds like that would have to be word of mouth. That's people like me that people have been saying you have to go see this movie, and you're like, oh crap, is it out of the theater yet? Like, I probably wasn't the only one. That's probably why that happened.
No, exactly.
Checkers put in another $5 super chat. Thanks, buddy. He says there's an alternate universe where Connor had this exact experience with Morbius. I'm writing this from that universe. Now, the question, Checkers, in that universe, and first of all, what I have to know what crazy nutso thing you had to do in order to tap back into this universe to give us this message. But
Connor, turn around, grab that Godzilla set, snap it over your knee, and then we can talk to that Connor.
But
I'll send you mine.
He's flying.
I really expected him to have different kinds of fingers when he pulled his hands up. But my big question is, was that in that other universe? Is that because I can't stop doing it? Is that because Morbius was really good in that universe, or because Connor was something of a dingbat in that universe? That's what I'm wondering.
It was because Connor was walking to the theater. He's like, "Oh, I'm gonna go see Morbius," and then like a brick fell off a building and it hit him on the head, and he was like, "Whoa." And he walked in and he was like, "That was great."
I came out going, #Morbius sweep, Leto sweep.
We did it.
We did it.
El Miedo.
Is the universe where A24 made Morbius?
Maybe. We don't know.
Anyway.
I'm not snapping the Godzilla set to figure it out, so...
Well, then you're gonna have to break all of your limbs in order to do it. It's those two. That was the easiest one.
Okay, we'll get to a spoiler section soon. I guess I'll go. Did you do a sign flip? I mean, it's pretty obvious which way your sign's going.
Red. No, it's really good. It's green. I just don't have anything green around me.
So, people basically, like I said, friends of mine, folks on the channel, sending me messages, acting like there was no way in the world I wouldn't see this as like the second coming of Christ or something. And it's always weird going in with preconceptions like that into a movie, where like I know I'm supposed to love it, and it's difficult to not kind of overcompensate one way or the other, where you're kind of you're worried that you're going to love it too much because you were told to, or you're worried that you're going to resist it too much because you were told you were going to love it. It's really hard to just kind of mind wipe yourself, neuralize yourself, and not come in with any kind of expectations. And I spent the first 45 minutes going, okay, I'm seeing the quirky sensibilities, because people were telling me, like, this movie was made for me, as if I was the only person in the whole world this movie was made for. Some folks told me that, and I got 45 minutes in, and I was like, not as much my sensibilities as I was kind of expecting, the way people were talking about it. And, like, I was amused by stuff, and like I said, there was some fun, quirky stuff, and I was appreciating the absurd humor and all of that, but it was a little raunchy for my taste. There was, like, some of the vulgarity is just not my thing, and I was like, I'm actually kind of concerned that I'm gonna disappoint all my friends when I walk out of this, and I'm like, I mean, I'm glad you guys liked it, but sorry, like, it was there, it was fine. And then I had, like, a spiritual experience with it, where it wasn't just, like, my thing. And, again, there are things about it that are not. There are actually places where I have to turn my head and can't look at it because of gross-out stuff. I can't deal with... We don't want to get too spoilery yet. I can't deal with, like, the hot dog condiments. That was difficult to watch to me. It was just gross. And the paper cut thing, I couldn't look at it. Like, and it was played like, almost like a torture scene kind of thing, or where some hurt themselves. Like, that's always hard to watch, and like the most mundane version of that. But I couldn't look at it. But it definitely has a lot of the things that I love, a lot of my kind of quirky sensibilities. The best way I could describe it is it's The Matrix as written by Douglas Adams, and it has a lot of Douglas Adams kind of motifs in it. It kind of comes out and telegraphs that right at the very beginning. It's like 5 minutes in, where you've already got the number 42. I don't know if you guys noticed it, but like, we have to just right away go, we love Douglas Adams, you guys. And like, anytime I see 42 in a thing, one of two things happens. Either it's, especially early, it either telegraphs this will be weird, this will be absurd, or it's in a totally straight movie where somebody just really likes Hitchhiker, but the movie's not going to be anything like Hitchhiker. This was that first thing. But it also had a lot of About Time, which I'm glad that I saw a couple months ago with Austin before we saw this. I had a really similar experience that I did watching that movie. It's the same kind of high-concept thing with a real soft science fiction, where it's got a set of rules, but they're arbitrary, and it's absurd and ridiculous, and it's grand in scope, but it's all about a character piece and a real intimate character study and relationship. I think I actually like this movie a tad more than that, or at least I think it spoke to me more than that. I was gobsmacked by this movie. Like, my review is the title. Like, the way it made me feel was everything, and all at once. It was just a really strange experience. I don't know exactly how to describe it. I was crying to the car. Like, I couldn't turn it off, and I didn't completely know why. But without getting too horribly personal, all of the stuff about and of course I've seen lots of movies about this, but this just hit me in, better with all of that. It's another movie about whether or not there is a point to life, and if existence really means anything. It's about existentialism, it's about nihilism, and all of that stuff, always speaks to me. This, and minor spoilers, but I didn't expect this to be so optimistic about it all. And I think that's one of the reasons that Austin and a couple other people assumed that I would really appreciate it, because I'm such a Star Trek guy. I really appreciate optimistic science fiction, and that's completely lacking in the stuff that is currently called Star Trek, of which Michelle Yeoh has been a big part of, and her character's been one of the worst things in that. Also, that's a character from an alternate universe. The character that she plays most in that show is the mirror version of Giorgio, because, spoiler alert for that show, but she's killed off in the first episode. And then when she comes back later, she's the emperor of the mirror universe. They used to call that an empress if it was a woman, but I guess they think they're more progressive to have the female empress called the emperor. I don't know, whatever. But anyway, this is the same show where the main character's name is a woman named Michael. I don't know. But anyway, I have hated her for years. Not the actress, but that character, and that's the thing I've seen from her the most, of course. So when I see that face and that voice, I just associate it with one of the things that I least like in the whole universe. And so, like I said, when I saw that commercial, I was like, okay, it's Michelle Yeoh doing a multiverse thing. I don't trust the project she picks, but then again, there's a lot of really great actors that have wound up in the horrifying schlock that has been Star Trek recently. And then I saw this, and I needed it. I needed it so badly. Not just because Star Trek's been bad, and I know I can't stop talking about that, but it drives me nuts. But also because I have been at kind of a loss for pieces that really get what science fiction is for as much as this does in recent memory, and just genre stuff in general. This is a movie that doesn't care who's watching it in the best possible way. It takes some really wild, crazy risks, and I have so much respect for it for that, and we'll talk about a couple of those. So obviously, I'm flipping my sign green. I really want to rush back out and see this movie again. It's one of those things that I assume I will see 19 times and see something new every time I watch it. My best thing, I guess, because I want to. I want to pick something about the way the mythology is handled, or because I like that it's got such a concrete mythology. I understand, it's arbitrary, but I understand how things work, and yet it drops that very quickly. That stuff stops mad. We get pages and pages of exposition, and then it never matters again. It's not about that stuff, and I love that. But I think I have to give it to Michelle Yeoh. She surprised me so much with this. It's such a layered performance, and she really understands this material. And this is gonna sound like a weird way to put this, but on a level of, you almost would think that for an actor to be this committed to this bizarre of material, she would have had to have written it herself. That's what it feels like. I love it so much. The I guess worst thing, if I have to pick, here's what's so cool about this movie. I could lob lots of criticisms at it, here's all the just kind of your standard rules it's breaking, right? It's the kind of piece that knows what it's doing, so it has its own set of rules. It's not about modern convention, and it gets away with everything, all at once and everywhere. So, any criticism I can lob at it, and I'm not saying it's review-proof, but any criticism I can lob at it ends up just being an observation. I could say it's convoluted. It is. It has to be. That's the piece it is, It's a little long. Yeah, it has to be. It's the pacing is wonky. Yeah, it has to be. There's a lot of criticisms I can throw at it, but it has to it needs all of its flaws if they're flaws. So I'm kind of with you guys. I'm not totally sure what to say for worst thing, except for maybe some jokes and things that were just too crass for my taste that I don't know that it necessarily had to have. I don't like it when people throw up on camera, just as a rule, and stuff like that. But like, it gets away with everything because of that title and because of what it's about. You'd think. I'm sorry, I've been talking a long time. You'd think that because I'm also a huge fan of random humor. It's one of my absolute favorite things, and this movie is brilliant because it has an actual story reason for throwing in everything in the kitchen sink. It keeps going like, this is funny because you didn't expect it. This is funny because it's totally out of nowhere, and it needs that stuff. It should be doing that because of what it's about. Because it's about a character who's able to experience everything at the same time, and so you're gonna have all these weird, random, crazy, quirky things, and it earns all of that. It's amazing. So even the stuff that I don't like, it's like I have to be uncomfortable for this movie to work. It's the thing. So I don't know what to say for worst thing.
Well, and that's what's cool is, like you say, it's a little long, and I think it's long because like the structuring and pacing, like in the middle, like it makes a choice. And it almost sort of like resets to a certain degree, and it slows down, and it shifts and whatnot. And it feels like the writers and directors here looked at the material and went, yes, this is a side effect of the story we want to tell. But it's the story we want to tell, so we'll take it with what we got. And that takes balls. And
it doesn't feel like an excuse, right? It's like, it's warranted. This is what it takes. If you don't like it, we're with you. We get it. But how else are you going to tell this story?
Yeah, it's why every rule has an exception.
Precisely. Yeah, and it all works. And I'm not saying that to make an excuse for the piece. It's like, it's that thing that Eric always used to say, like, I don't know what exception that proves the rule means, but if that's a thing, this is one of those. Like,
well, yeah, and I don't know, like, I can't remember what I was gonna say, so now I've just started a thought, and I feel like a chump. No, it's fine.
Checkers put in another $5 super chat and says, I invented a multiverse machine. I'm an inventor. Cap is dead in this universe. And Austin is American. Connor cried due to the Vulture cameo.
Well, if I'm American, I think it's safe to say I probably killed Cap. Some more deep lore in this universe.
I'm sure I did.
He said, "What's up, Doc?"
Connor always tears up when you say food and joint in the same sentence.
Uh-oh.
I don't even know what that means.
I don't even know what that means. So, and I cried during it. So, yeah.
Anyway, Miguel in the comments, and this is a guy I don't recognize. Thanks for being here. Strangely, I think the worst part of this movie was the multiverse stuff undercutting the film. I started getting annoyed at it because I wanted to see that emotional climax at the laundromat near the end. Interesting. Yeah, I didn't have that experience, obviously, for all the reasons I described earlier, but I did kind of wonder if some folks wouldn't feel that way, where we keep interrupting scenes with the big bombastic multiverse stuff because it like, and he used the right word, intercutting. Like, we're constantly, he said undercutting, but we're intercutting, pardon me, between scenes that are, say it with me, happening at the same time. And
because they're all connected. She ruins everything, like all of her lives. And then when she has to put it all back together, she's putting them all back together. So it's like, it makes sense. It's not like we're just kind of cutting at random.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and I get where that commenter comes from. That's actually what my brother's main issue was that he thought the technobabble was nonstop, and that kind of robbed a lot of the emotional connection for him. But for me, what I liked is that we start off with this person's life is so busy with the taxes and the business and a failing marriage and a daughter they're not connecting with and all this stuff. And here's what I like about all the weird technobabble stuff. It's an escape for her, but it's just as complicated and like weird as her life is. And so like,
that's a great point.
I think that's why I was able to latch onto it, because, you know, when you're an adult and you have like a life to take care of, and I don't even have kids or like a spouse or like a business I'm running, and I already kind of feel like there's like all of this planning and like prioritizing and all these things that you have to like synchronize and synonymously like understand how to take care of all at the same time. And so kind of taking that and applying a genre aspect to it, like you know what I mean? Like you're not, there's a version of you that's a husband, and there's a version of you that's a father, and there's a version of you that's an employee, and there's a version of you that's like a, you know what I mean? Like you are all these identities at the same time. And I feel like it's a good metaphor for that.
Yeah, exactly. And from a character perspective, like we're all nerds. We all understand how the multiverse works. You don't have to explain it to us as a concept. But when you're dealing with like a 50-year-old laundromat runner that's just going about her life, probably have to explain that a little bit more. Like it makes sense from a character.
I even felt like with all the technobabble, that stuff would have been like a little more hand-holdy to an audience even 10 or 20 years ago.
Yeah, but like they kind of drop it, and like they kind of give you everything, but they break up the exposition with a solidly engaging action sequence, and then they kind of expect you to remember the rules. And
they give the audience plenty of credit, but also the exposition's not boring because it's so ridiculous. Like the movie plays everything straight in exactly the right way, but it knows how silly and nuts it all is. And so I found myself laughing out loud at exposition, where I was like, that's great. Like I mentioned Adams, but there's also and I don't know if this is an influence, of course, but like I was seeing all my favorite stuff in this, right? Like Barry Sonnenfeld is here, Ben Edlund is here, a lot of stuff about the mundanities of everyday life. We can go ahead and get into spoilers now. So spoiler section now, folks. We're all recommending the movie. We've been recommending it for, get this, 42 minutes. So if you don't want to know any more about the movie and you want to go see it before you see the rest of this video, stop now, and thanks for watching, whether you're doing that live or after the fact. My favorite joke in the whole movie is the paper cut thing. That's so Ben Edlund. When he's like, it's paper cuts only happen on accident. You can't do it on purpose. This is impossible. Oh, it's wonderful. I love stuff like that. But anyway, like I even thought exposition was funny for that very reason.
The paper cut bit that I liked, that felt like it was for me, is that final paper cut. He slings it at the camera and like blood gets on the camera.
I didn't see that part. I couldn't look at it. That was where I was looking away. I couldn't do it. And the sound effect bothered me so much I couldn't look at the screen.
But my favorite joke, if we're doing that,
yeah, sure.
Noah sent it into the super chat. Rakakuni. Oh my God, I love Rakakuni. The funniest thing about that is when she walks in and he's got like a giant raccoon on his head that is bigger than what the hat was, because he has the raccoon under the hat like Ratatouille, but like the raccoon is like this big when the hat was this big, and he turns around and he just says, "I can explain, it's not what it looks like." Oh my God, it was great.
So that is, like with the hot dog fingers, that's clearly going to be one of the big references that people keep quoting with this movie. And this is one of those things, by the way, that I think will get cult classic status and kind of immediately, and it'll be that kind of shorthand where people will say, like, hot dog fingers, everybody knows what you're talking about. Rakakuni, everybody knows what you're talking about. I'm gonna be the dissenter on this. The raccoony joke did nothing for me. I didn't actually care for it. I didn't want to make it my worst thing because it's, you know, this is this minor element. That's just this kind of running joke. I thought her thinking that the movie was called Raccacoonie and for remembering it as a raccoon was really funny. And I also thought that it was wonderfully in character because, like you mentioned earlier, whichever of you guys mentioned that this is, I think Austin, that this is a character that is not into pop culture, right? She's not going to know about the multiverse. She probably, if she ever sees a movie, sees it one time and was doing dishes at the same time, right? Like, she's not actually paying attention to things like this. And so her remembering it that way was really funny. I thought actually visualizing it was a bridge too far.
I had the reverse view. When she mentions it, I'm like, it makes sense for the character, but I've also seen like a million jokes like that, so I was like, like that's kind of funny, I guess. And then when it shows it, I was like, okay, it's funny that they committed to the joke.
It's a taste issue thing. That's one of those places where it's not my humor sensibilities, and it feels like, I don't know, maybe like a Coen Brothers thing or something. It's just not my thing. I don't know. It's not funny.
I don't know. To me, it felt very SpongeBob, and maybe that's why I liked it. It felt
fair
really
enough.
SpongeBob. And what I took from it was she's already like connected with multiple versions of herself by that point.
Yeah.
I took it as in another universe, the movie is Raccacoonie, and then in another universe still, there's literally a raccoon that does it. So it's
part of it too was in like, again, real soft science fiction, like as soft as it gets, with the same kind of hilarious logic. And I brought this up in other videos, but the same kind of hilarious logic that you get with one of, I think, the second or third Hitchhiker book with Douglas Adams, where the logic for a human being able to fly is he throws himself at the ground and misses. Like, it's this movie does that kind of stuff, and it's great. But even with the internal logic that we have here, I wasn't quite sure how we get from she misunderstands how Ratatouille works, and that means there's a universe where there's a wreck. I didn't see the correlation. I didn't see how, like, thinking that it was one thing would physically manifest it in another universe, unless the idea was at the point where she thought that she was already looking at all the universes simultaneously and had accidentally tapped into that, but I don't think that's what's going on.
That's what I took from it. So she brought it in from another universe and was misremembering.
Well, it's because there was literally 8 or infinity universes. So there's universes where she walks in, it's a hippo on a guy's head. Like, it's just, it could be anything. But we're only seeing this one.
Well, and that's very, and I don't mean to just, you know, name all the places where it's pulling from Hitchhiker, but this will be a thing that folks that haven't read the book might be familiar with, because if you ever watched the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy movie that came out in the mid-2000s, they did the improbability drive with the ship in that, and that's a real kind of similar idea that, like, anything that could happen does happen. And so there's this machine that you press a button and, you know, any like random thing could happen, no matter how improbable it is. And then we do the same thing in this, where you have characters that turn into yarn and rocks, and, like, it's just like the improbability drive.
Like that they made the raccoon, they made him an animatronic, and that was funny. I think animatronics are pretty nice. Funny.
Yep.
And that they had a, I'm blanking on his name now, but they had a parody, like the song that's playing during that scene too. It's Randy something.
Randy
Newman, yeah.
It's like a Randy Newman parody song playing over it.
Well, and he actually is uncredited, but he came in for this and did that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I assumed somebody just doing the voice.
No, they got him to do that.
Okay, that's awesome. I mean, that's even better.
Josh, real quick, put in a $5 super chat. Thanks, buddy. This film does a great job using the metaphysical to make sense of the world and reality. I bet Grant Morrison would love this movie. I had that thought with lots of creators and artists and stuff, where I just kept like, this person would love this, and yeah.
Well, and I mean, I got Grant Morrison too from this.
Again, Edlund especially, and
Yeah,
uh,
but what I appreciated, like, there's like a very keen eye for like innocuous details that like you almost feel like they're personal to you, like you're the only one who notices them because you don't mention them to other people, because why would you? It's such an innocuous detail. But I think a lot of other people do feel like, or do think about these things. For example, the everything bagel. I think
yeah,
literally every person, when they see the word everything bagel, they think, is it everything? And they chuckle to themselves,
yeah.
and then they don't tell that to anybody else. Likewise, there's a part when so the daughter is like this evil, interdimensional supervillain who's going to destroy
that
everything.
performance is also spectacular.
Yes, but there's a part. There's
link.
there's a
anyways,
scene.
go on.
There's a scene where, in order to travel, they need to sit on the cracks of a couch.
Oh, right.
And I was watching that thinking, every time I sit on a couch, I think, am I going to sit on the cushion or am I going to sit on the crack? And I don't tell anybody this, but if I feel that way, I'm sure
somebody else has had this thought. Yeah.
Everyone has, and there's like every little one of those little thoughts that you have in your day-to-day life. This movie knows that you've thought that and has that in here, and it's important. And that's what I like about it, is that it's about the importance of the completely mundane.
Yeah.
It felt that's what made it feel so Grant Morrison to me, anyways.
Since you guys threw out your favorite jokes, I'll say mine is very easily the Rock universe.
Oh, it's great. Well, and the thing is, I had a profound experience with the Rock universe. That wasn't a funny joke to me so much as a bit in a piece of cinema. And I don't want to sound pretentious when I say this, but I'm gonna go into Connor's realm for just a second and say that, I'm not calling Connor pretentious, but I'm gonna go into Connor's realm for a minute and say that what was amazing about this to me was how the filmmaking actually works on me, the member of the audience. I'm seeing, I've never had this experience with anything. I'm seeing rocks looking over a mountain into this amazing view at the start of a universe that doesn't have life. By the way, I love the line, most universes are like this. Most of them we didn't actually get life. And all I'm looking at is text on a screen, and it's put up in the most expressive way possible for rocks talking, and like each of them gets a different color, so it's easier to tell who's speaking when, even though they're on different sides of the screen. That's all really well thought out for like how the audience is going to be able to actually be communicated with. But you guys, I know these characters so well at this point, and they're resonating with me so much that I was seeing performances.
No, absolutely. I had that too. Like,
that's amazing.
It's
like,
both
I
a
had
funny
those
joke.
actors' voices in my head, and I was like, "This rocks on screen. Michelle Yeoh is still here. How does that work?" It's amazing.
Yeah. No, it both works in that it's really funny, and it also has to have the big, like, oh yeah, everything sucks. Like, there's no point to anything. And then it also later has to flip around and have some of the, like, no, everything's great. And I love when The Rock turns around, it's got the little googly eyes on it.
Yeah.
My favorite part of The Rock, my favorite joke in that is when...
Sorry, the googly eye, because I'm not going to get a chance to say this later. The googly eye thing is brilliant, because it's a thing I never would have expected to pay off. It's really easy to say, I say this with everything that works, but a lot of great setup and payoff, because at the end of the day, a lot of good writing is just setup and payoff. But that felt like one of those really throwaway things that would never come back again. And when Michelle Yeoh puts it on her head, she's got cosmic awareness, and it's a third eye. It's kind of genius.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But my favorite joke in the Rock universe. No, I'm glad you brought that up. But that's it's where the daughter Joy, whose name is Joy, her Rock drops an F-bomb, and then the Mama Rock says language, and she's like, "Are you kidding me?" And well, it's a joke, and I love that because you're literally just looking at language.
It's so creative and thoughtful, and it's writing, commenting on writing in a really fun and imaginative way, and Yeah, it's just it's kind of brilliant. I'm seeing some interesting comments in the comments, so I'm gonna read a couple of them. Miguel, my parents don't speak English well, so that bit was relatable. I'm happy the movie decided to be this absurd. It's the kind of random thought you would have if someone brought up an infinite multiverse. I'm glad you brought that up because I wanted to mention the language thing. One of the really subtle, kind of easy to miss things or easy to appreciate things I think that that I was really kind of floored by from the very beginning is just all the mixed Chinese and English and like how believable and natural that's all handled. Just the way Michelle Yeoh goes in and out. Which, I mean, I'm pretty sure a native Chinese speaker in the first place, that probably was not like a difficult thing for her to do. But like, just I don't know if that's her choosing in the moment which one she's gonna break into, or if it reads that way on the page. But I thought that was a really good choice.
Mm-hmm. Well, I can't imagine it's easy to act like you don't know a language well like that.
Yeah.
And I mean, she pulls it off perfectly. Like there's parts earlier on in the film where I'm like I know I'm looking at Michelle Yeoh, but it also feels like she's legitimately struggling. She pulls it off so perfectly.
Well, and I also think that there are places, and the film always knows when it's this and when it's not, even if I don't, but I'm pretty sure there are places where the character is intentionally pretending like she doesn't know English as well as she really does, because if it's not that, it would become a problem that sometimes she seems to be struggling real hard and is speaking in almost a broken English, and then at other points is speaking, more than fluently. I'm pretty sure it's that tactic of in immigrant pretending like they don't know the language so they don't have to deal with customers and stuff. I think she's doing some of that.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. You get some of that stuff early on with some of the customers. Like you get Jenny Slate. You get their kind of whole interaction, which then leads to an awesome fight where she kicks a dog around.
Miguel also says, doesn't this movie hit the crisis on two Earths paradox? Oh, I wrote about this, didn't I? There should be a version of Yeoh's daughter that succeeds. Where it's like, if everything happens, then wouldn't it create this paradox where there's where you have the world we're in where she fails, but then if she does succeed, how does in another universe, how does that work? Because that would destroy the multiverse, but the multiverse didn't get destroyed, so is that a paradox? But in Crisis on Two Earths, and I'm rusty on that. It's been a long time, but they made it, they drove home the point that everything that can happen does happen. Here I think it's maybe slightly different. Am I wrong about this? Where it's like everything that you do creates an offshoot universe where something else might happen, but we're not explicitly told that everything definitely happens. There's a universe for absolutely everything, and I think that's maybe how you get around that.
Yeah.
And there's also only one version of her that's got the cosmic awareness she has, which helps.
And also, I mean, if in every universe she fails, in every universe she also succeeds, because that's the point of the story, is that she gets through this point in her life, and this family does kind of they do reconcile, and so it's, I don't know. I something think, about the. Sorry, what's that?
Sorry, this might be kind of a cheat explanation, but I don't think it is. It seems to me like once these two get this kind of cosmic awareness, they're stepping out of the rules of the universe to some degree. Where I don't think every choice they make after that is creating new universes when they're seeing all of them at the same time. I think the rules are different for them at that point. Keep in mind that they can rearrange matter at will. They basically got the Infinity Gauntlet at that point. And so I don't think that they're bound by those rules anymore.
No, I don't think so either.
There are a few issues I had, and just based on when I look back at the movie, I get why it had to be the way it was.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things where when you do something random, you tap into another version of yourself, right? That you can now have all of their knowledge and skills, and you can use that skill yourself. It turns out, I mean, it's very convenient that every time she does something random, she taps into the exact version of herself that she needed to tap into at the exact moment she needed to tap into them in order to acquire their skill, because even though she didn't have her headsets on at that point, so it's like, how were you told to do something in order to acquire that? I guess she just knew how to do that. But then also, how is she not tapping into a version? She never taps into a version of herself that was killed by her cosmic aware daughter, because we know that her cosmic aware daughter is picking off alternate versions of her. So it's like she doesn't tap into a version of herself that's dead. You know what I mean? It's like, what if you did this one random thing that happened to this universe, but there's no her there anymore, so she can't really acquire that skill. Am I missing something?
I've only seen the movie once, and I don't know if I'm right about this, but I think the idea might be, again, kind of cosmic awareness. That, like, before, when she had to wear the headset, she had, and what a fun way to do the Matrix download thing. Because this movie really is just the Matrix with multiverse and Douglas Adams' quirkiness. Like, that's totally what it is. It's what if Neo was a real character? Like, that, and I love the Matrix, and it's my favorite movie. Or at least it was. I don't know where I'm at with this yet. I've seen it one time, but it, and also I don't think I would have appreciated this movie, and it would have resonated with me as hard if I weren't a Matrix fan already. And I think I want to say you have to somewhat appreciate that already to really get this movie, but I don't know if that's fair. I don't know if there are people watching this movie that don't know The Matrix at all, but so much of why I latched onto it was because it was the first time I've seen The Matrix again, and in some ways kind of better. But anyway,
we can all agree that there's Trinity, and then there's Short Round. I can't. I don't know.
We can all agree with that. So, and I actually was on in left field for most people with the new Matrix movie. This is leaps and bounds above that, but I still really enjoyed that as a satire. Anyway, so Connor, I think maybe the explanation is before she becomes the one. Like when Neo finally understands how to kind of remake the Matrix in his own image. She has to wear the headset. She needs somebody to tell her specifically the things to do to tap into other universes. When she is able to transcend that and do it herself, my assumption was she already knows the universe that she's going into because she can see all of them at one time. And so she's not randomly picking a random thing to do and then going there. She's doing that thing because she knows where it will lead her. I.e., she wouldn't accidentally go to a dead version because she can see everything at one time. But I don't know if I'm right about that.
And, well, and then that's the other thing, because I was thinking of, like, well, the reason why she needs to conveniently do all these things that tap into this version is because I was thinking that once you tap into it, then you get there, then it's a part of your cosmic awareness. So it's like your awareness grows and grows and grows, and then it becomes more and more cosmic. And with this, she needs to be gaining all of those experiences, because the crux of the second half is that she has like the Eternals thing where it's like her brain is fracturing and she's like forgetting where she is, and she's like losing herself in the multiverse. So looking at the story, like I get that, and so it's like I'm forgiving of that little kind of finger wag I'm giving it about her conveniently being able to do all this stuff.
They're playing fast and loose with it a little bit because how do you not? There's a conceit here, and we're running with the rules as best we can. I think it's as consistent as it can be. But B, at the end of the day, it's like I said earlier, it's not really about the mythology.
Exactly.
It's doing this big grand thing, this big crazy high concept thing that at the end of the day is just about a mother who doesn't know how to give her daughter affection and who needs to know her significance in the universe, and that at the end of the day, it's not about letting society or the universe or what have you tell you what you're supposed to do with your life, but appreciating what you have already and putting those things into perspective. That's a place where it is again all about the contradictions, right? It's about how ambition is overrated, and yet if she didn't have all of those unfulfilled ambitions, she couldn't save the universe.
Mm-hmm.
It's really profound in that way.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. That was one of those interesting things. Is like she gets told like, "You're the worst version of you."
Yeah, and that's what makes you special.
And that's what's great is because like her husband from the Alphaverse he says that with such happiness and joy, like you're the worst version of you, and then later she has this realization that she's like basically Michelle Yeoh in another universe, and she's like, oh my god, I need to tell bring my husband back. I need to tell him that I'm so much happier in the world where I didn't go with him. And there's something like inherently,
and then it turns
sad
out that's not true at all.
Exactly. But there's something inherently sad about that, obviously, but there's also something inherently funny about she spent so much time in life with this man that who else is she going to tell about this amazing thing that she just discovered? Besides the man who it will harm, like that information will hurt the most is him.
Yeah.
And what's great about that character is that her lack of faith in him is sort of what his like the ability, the fact that she even has a lack of faith in him is proof that he is working in her life. Like, you know what I mean? Like he's doing the thing that no one notices. And my brother came back from the movie and he said that that's his favorite character that he's seen in a movie in some time. And I'm watching the movie thinking, what's so special about this guy? And then it's like the movie heard that thought and is like, what's so special about that guy? Well, we're going to tell you. And then it made me cry. And so the fact that I was asking what's so special about this guy was the point. And it got to me.
You
it got to me a
don't know
lot.
this till toward the end, but she married Mr. Rogers. That's what's so brilliant about it is it's that philosophy. It's the importance of kindness, even when the world tells you that nice guys finish last. Mr. Rogers has been referred to in literature as a countercultural figure, and this movie makes that character countercultural. I was really impressed with the way that whole thing is discussed, where he says, I don't do this because I'm naive. I do it as a survival mechanism. It's not popular. It's not making me look impressive. In fact, it kind of makes me look like a pushover or, like a girly man or something in some way. And it's like, no, that's actually what masculinity should look like. Is like he has the courage to be a good person in a world where that's really, really difficult. And I just love that gives her the ability to succeed at the end, that he's the linchpin of all of that.
Well, and it has the line like, it's something
there's a
like,
social significance to that I don't want to get real deep into, but that really spoke to me.
Yeah, exactly. When it's got a line, again, it's been weeks since I've seen this, but it's something like, like, I'm tired of fighting. Like, stop fighting. Like, can't we just be nice or whatever? And in like a really bad movie, you'd look at that and go, that is a terrible line. That's really goofy.
Yeah.
But that is so that character, and it works so well. And the entire climax where she like fights like the Legion of Henchmen by essentially giving them a nice version of themselves.
So great. Yeah,
it's wonderful.
Yeah, it's so wholesome, and you're right. Like, I couldn't believe what I was looking at, Austin. I was like, what you were just saying of like, you could see the bad version of that line. I'm looking at it, I'm like, how is this working? How is it we had that great moment where Doomer Michelle Yeoh is like talking to her husband and is like, how could you ever let me go? And then like 4 minutes later, she's talking to her daughter and letting her go. I'm like, how did we believably get here this fast? And how was like, and on top of that, then she's fighting the Legion of Henchmen with kindness and happiness, and I'm like, no, it shouldn't work this way. But it's
so much
it's
in
working
this
so
movie
well.
is like, it shouldn't work. How are you, like, you shouldn't be able to get away with credits roll in the middle and, oh psych, it's not actually the end of the movie. You shouldn't be able to get away with we're 2/3 of the way through the movie before it gives you part 2, and then we're 3 minutes away from the end before it gives you part 3. It shouldn't work, but it's kind of perfect. Something I meant to mention earlier that I think is really important, just take a step back if we can, is the way the multiverse idea works in this versus other things where it's played as too much of a gimmick. The issue with many worlds theory in a lot of stuff, and this is why people felt like when Star Trek: The Next Generation finally broached this, it broke Star Trek. In one of my favorite episodes of the series, which I'm not supposed to have this opinion according to old school TOS Trekkies, but I love parallels and I don't care what anybody says about it. But the reason that parallels, for anybody that knows what I'm talking about, was a problem in TNG, is this episode where Worf starts accidentally like bouncing between universes. He's at his birthday party and he's got chocolate cake, but then suddenly it's a yellow cake, and Data gives him a painting that's of this battle, but then suddenly it's just stars or something else, and it's this really fun episode where you find out that Star Trek really is a multiverse. The problem people had with it was, okay, well, it makes everything arbitrary and all of the stories we're telling insignificant, because why this universe? Why are we following this set of characters instead of the characters in any other version? Comic universes sometimes have this problem where it's like, why does 616 matter more than any other universe in the Marvel multiverse, et cetera, et cetera. And I don't have any of those questions here. It perfectly answers why now, why this universe, why this character, et cetera, et cetera. And even the Alphaverse isn't like, well, this is the universe that matters and everything else is an offshoot. That just happens to be the universe where they figured out they were in a multiverse, and her character created a machine that made it so that people could go to different universes, and making that machine is how she accidentally created the supervillain, which ends up being a grand metaphor for the smaller, more regular person characters that we have, where you have a mother who won't let her daughter be herself and is trying to force her into a life that she doesn't want, etc., etc. And it's and then it kind of is a superhero thing, because you have the trope of the hero who creates the villain and all of that, and it just kind of works brilliantly. And I kept going, I should be asking why now and why this universe, but I never had that, and that's why this works as a multiverse thing, and Marvel and everybody else need to take notes.
I mean, I said I wasn't going to say this. I said this to myself, that I wouldn't go here, because I don't want to be putting other stuff down when I'm filled with this kind of happiness. But the story's been going around. Everyone kind of knows at this point these directors were offered Loki. And you said this to you felt like The Matrix again. We spend most of the time in a mundane office building. It's an action series where we have, or an action story where we have different variations on yourself and all. The point is, for me, I got the sense that Daniels walked into the Marvel office, smelled what they were cooking, and said, no, thank you. And then they said, all right, let's go make the good version of Loki. And then they did. And so I was very happy about that, because I like multiverses. I've always liked multiverses in comics. And I don't have like that. I get why people have that. Why are we following this arbitrary universe? I get why people have that. I've never had that. Why are we following this one? Because it's the one we're following. That's it. And so I think it's fine. But so when I watched this, and we get technobabble and we get exposition, it's still wrapped up in an identifiable storyteller's like style and vision, and it felt so personal, even though it's tapping into something that's pretty popular right now, and I like that. I like, it's like the Lego movie.
And that's
again
not
for
why
me.
they made it. They've been trying to get this movie made for years. I
Oh,
bet,
really?
yeah, I
Yes,
bet
like
the
the
reason.
late 2000s, apparently.
Yes.
Apparently, they looked at
Whoa.
when Spider-Verse came out. They saw that movie
They
and
were
went, "Oh,
upset because
we have to like change part of our idea because this movie's doing some of what we want to do."
they were upset
Whoa,
about
okay.
Rick and Morty season 2 because they said all of the ideas we wanted to explore with multiverse they already did. It's not going to be new to people. Yeah, so I think that their reason for not taking Loki could be even more benign than you're saying. They might have looked at what they were doing and went, "Well, that's too close to this project we're already trying to develop and have been trying to make for years."
Okay.
But I also wonder if that's just coincidence or if the script was making rounds or something, and somehow the Marvel offices got their hands on it and went, "Well, maybe we can get these guys to make this show instead of the thing they're trying to make." And they went, "No, this is too personal to us. We really want to make this movie." So yeah, I mean, it's really interesting that that's that close. I don't mean to sound cynical, but I bet that's not coincidence, Connor. Like,
Yeah. No, I think, there were too many similarities, like specifically like the mundane office setting, like juxtaposed with the, cosmic multiversal conceit. I'd be very curious. I don't know if you've seen Swiss Army Man, Austin, but
I haven't.
I'm
okay.
really curious about it now, though. I haven't either.
Okay. Yeah, that's the previous film. It stars Daniel Radcliffe and Paul Dano, and also Mary Elizabeth Winstead's in there. But it similarly has sort of like a humorous conceit that's more gross out that I don't know would appeal to you, Kat. But the personal story, I think you would. It's about a farting corpse played by Daniel Radcliffe and Paul Dano, who takes him along and carries him on his back as he goes through a series, a journey of self-discovery. And it's been, people loved the heck out of that. I thought it was pretty good. And so when people were loving the crap out of this, I thought I would probably just think it was pretty good. I like this a lot more than Swiss Army Man, but it also has me wanting to go back to Swiss Army Man. And I'd be curious to know what you guys think of it, just out of curiosity. But,
Yeah, no, I'm definitely interested in checking it out after this movie. One other thing I wanted to mention too, especially because we're talking about the Marvel thing.
Real quick though, that's a wild and wacky premise that I think is exactly what a remake of Weekend at Bernie's should have been. Anyway, I'm sorry.
I was gonna say that's what the Spawn Year remake should be. The action in this movie is really good.
Yeah.
And like it's nice that like Marvel really needs to step up their game when we're getting this kind of stuff from like indie movies that cost $15 million, and it's like right up there with like the Batman and like John Wick and stuff. I really like the scene where Short Round fights the security guards in front of the elevators. He's got his little fanny pack.
Yeah, that's another thing a lot of people are talking about is the whole fanny pack fight.
That was like the kind of the first scene that really showed you what this movie was capable of. And I was in a packed theater on a Tuesday night, and you could tell in that scene people were like, "Ooh, what's going on here?" Like, not only is this funny and relatable, and we all learn how heartwarming and emotional it is. It's a real kick-ass action movie. Like, it's kind of got everything. It's great.
Mm-hmm. The action gave me Scott Pilgrim vibes.
Ooh, yeah, that's good. That's a good comparison.
I was thinking of that movie quite a bit through this. And a lot of the things that this reminded me of, I don't know were necessarily influences, but I saw one review that, how was it worded, that said that this was like the kind of genre, not bending, but like just a blender. It just like it's every genre. It's a bazillion things all put together. It also reminded me of Donnie Darko in places, which is a movie I hadn't thought of in about 900 years. And is better than that movie, but yeah. Most of the movies that this was reminding me of, I think, is better at whatever they were doing than it is. Scott Pilgrim's a weird comparison. I'm not going to compare them too much, but it reminded me of that movie.
I feel like they had a similar energy that like someone like an Edgar Wright has. I mean, like Scott Pilgrim, this thing changes aspect ratios a lot.
That's true. That's a good point. Sure. But it doesn't do but it's not the perspective thing that Scott Pilgrim was doing, where you're wondering like how much of what you're seeing on screen is actually happening and how much of it is in the mind of the protagonist, which I will still never know, and my brain would explode if I thought about that too hard. But with this, it's all literal. Something happened with your light?
Yeah, one of my lights
on her now.
Yeah. Hold on. I'm gonna change my batteries on my lights. 1 second.
We're gonna see him Hulk out.
He's gonna jump scare us. Watch. He's gonna do it. I'm gonna take my headset off till he comes back.
Don't do that. I'm talking to myself.
I don't want to be jump scared.
Miguel again, believing in better despite not understanding the world they occupy is pertinent to the immigrant experience. I had that thought too. The writers really understand this, and Wayman's speech is the best thing in the movie. Yeah, I do think it is important that, and not a random choice, that you have a first generation Chinese immigrant as your protagonist. It's the most like British I've ever seen a movie that is partly a Chinese movie be. It's the most Chinese British movie I've ever seen.
Put that on the poster.
Exactly. And it's not British at all, but a lot of the humor influence is very British.
Mm-hmm. Well, no, that makes sense. Isn't Douglas Adams British?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I found myself kind of rethinking life in general getting to the end of this movie. And I don't want to overstate it, but I was just in this place where I was like, I don't know how to articulate anything about this. Like as I was walking out and driving home, I was just like, it kind of blew up my whole world, I think.
Well, for weeks now, I've been like, "Oh my God, Dan! Like, this is one of the best movies of the year so far. Like, it's fantastic. It's great." He finally saw it today, and he was like, "Well, you didn't oversell it."
Yeah,
it legitimately was.
It's really good. Yeah.
Yeah, there's some good stuff out there. X is pretty dang good. I don't think that's in theaters anymore.
For this, yeah. This is my fourth movie of the year, but it's great.
And I haven't seen enough movies this year, so because I haven't.
I've seen 12. This is my favorite right now. I'm gonna hold off until I watch Apollo 10.5 on Netflix because it's Richard Linklater and I love his stuff, and it's one of his animated movies, and I just watched Waking Life today, and that was pretty cool. So, oh well. But right now, I will be shocked if this is not in my top 5 movies of the year come December.
Yeah, absolutely. For Cap, I'm going to guess his movie order so far this year is like Everything Everywhere All at Once, the Batman, Sonic 2. And then specifically Michelle Yeoh in this movie. She like separated somehow and like ended up on top. But
I mean, I also saw Morbius.
Oh, I forgot. Okay, and then Morbius.
Yeah. I can't remember if I've seen any other movies that came out this year. Tyler, the humor is also very contemporary in a way that somehow manages not to be totally irritating. It was consistently hilarious. Yeah, I had that thought too. It's capable of doing the subversive thing that a lot of movies try to do now, and I don't mean to constantly compare it to Marvel. Marvel's not the only culprit with this, but
they kind of set that tone that like Hollywood is just it's trying to lock that in.
Yeah. So, but like this movie is able to do that, where there are places where it will kind of. I'm trying to think of a good example. I had one a minute ago, where it'll set up a situation and then go, "This is what you expect to happen," but then we're going to do this other thing instead. And like I've gotten to where I know exactly where it's going when movies do that now, because we don't do the old thing anymore. We always do just the silly subversive thing. This gets away with that in several places.
No, and there's some good like physical humor too. Like I laughed like really hard when Jamie Lee Curtis fell down the stairs and put her face through a cement wall. I don't know if that's happened to you guys before, but That was really funny.
I did laugh multiple times very hard. That I needed to catch my breath. I can't remember exactly what moments they are because this movie is so packed with moments. I laughed, I cried, I cheered.
He spilled milk on his good pants.
You hulked out at one point.
Yeah, that's what I did.
It was when she stabbed Short Round. You were like, "No, you don't do that."
Tyler was self-aware without calling itself out. Instead of lampshading bad writing, he was running with the absurd. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. That's why it works, is because it's not using anything as a crutch. It's not going, let's do multiverse as a gimmick to just, have a lot of fun versions of different characters without actually telling a story. It had something to say with the concept. And Connor, I'm like you. I've always loved the multiverse and the many worlds thing, and that kind of cosmic situation as an idea. And it's always been one of my favorite things. It's what my first novel was about, and I feel like I'm getting to a place where it's almost like a bad word, where like I sometimes feel kind of bad for liking multiverse, because there's so many people now that are like, and I had this even before the comic book movies were doing that with comics, where like we were in a place even 10 years ago where people were really hating the idea of multiverse because they were sick of crises and all these gimmicky giant crossover events and things, because it wasn't there for any great storytelling purpose much of the time. It was just kind of Spider-Verse and everything. I'm talking about the comics, not the movie, because the movie found a way to do that and actually say something with it, where wouldn't it be nuts if you had all these different versions of Deadpool or Spider-Man or whatever? And but you can only do that so often, and it'd be nice if you told a story with it every now and again.
It'd be nice if we got to see the universe where Deadpool's just a rock. I also
anyone hasn't read... Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, if anyone hasn't read The Multiversity by Grant Morrison,
yes,
and the greatest artists on the planet, do. That's my kind of thing.
It's some of the greatest fourth wall breaking I've ever seen in anything.
I felt legitimately scared to turn a page at one point.
Yep. And I know just what you're talking about. Yeah, it's amazing, where you feel like you are part of the story, and if you keep reading, something bad is going to happen to you and the rest of the universe. It's insane. I've never seen anything handle meta that well. Wait a minute. Yeah, go ahead.
Is there a monster at the end of the book?
No, but it's not exactly like that. It's great. Mikey makes me read him that all the time. But anyway, how did you guys feel about the movie thing? Where we get to create, they set up what looks like the pessimistic ending I thought we might be getting to. And then it rolls credits, and then it tries to make you think that you're at the end of the movie. It didn't work on me exactly, because they're smart to very quickly put up the name of Evelyn instead of Michelle Yeoh, where this is not actually the ending of the movie. But I had a split second where I wondered, because I was remembering the part 1 thing at the beginning, and I kept waiting for part 2 to come up. I don't know if you guys had that. Like the whole movie, I kept going, we're pretty far in to not have that part 2 yet. What game are they playing at here? And then it went, the end, and I was like, okay, so one of two things is happening here. I'm being screwed with, which is what was happening, or they somehow got A24 to greenlight a trilogy, and I've only seen the first movie of. I had that thought for a second.
Well, that's basically what their movie X this year did. So
oh, really?
They could have done that, yeah. Not like a trilogy, but they greenlit a sequel on set of the first movie.
I had the same thing where I think the scene before the credits start rolling, all of a sudden I remembered, wait a minute, wasn't there a part 1?
Yeah.
Wait a minute, hold on. And then I was I was thinking even before the credits started, it feels like we're really far into this. is part 2 going to be like a sequel? like,
Yeah.
I had that same
Well, I
thing.
checked my watch. The movie had been going for an hour and 40 minutes, which is movie length. It could have been over.
And I feel like that's them understanding that the movie is a little long and exhausting, and the pacing is a little strange, because they understand that you feel like you've been through a movie. But yeah, I don't. It didn't quite get me, but it was. I found it to be an amusing gag that within the pacing of the story, it was solid.
I'm gonna give the answer that I always give to any time you say like, "Oh, what did you think of this?" Which is, the second it happened, I quoted The Simpsons and went, "To be continued," immediately.
I didn't realize this as I was watching, but in hindsight, backtracking, Connor, I can't help but think that that was maybe one of the smartest choices structurally, because if you think about it, even though that's obviously real cliffhangery, it kind of feels like, not just in length and pacing, but like it kind of feels like you already had 3 acts. Like that's kind of their way of saying, okay, we've done our action movie. Now let's get to what the movie's really about. And like you start to get why you're even here after that. And it hasn't been wasting time. It needs everything it's done up to that point before you realize the more personal story that it's telling. But I think that was smart. And like, yeah, it's a fun, silly kind of gimmicky joke, where I guess the whole movie you've been watching is fiction in the world where Michelle Yeoh is an actress. And I don't really understand how that works, but I guess I don't care. Like,
yeah, sounds about right.
Oh, actually, it's that 90s Spider-Man thing, right? It's that like there's that universe in the multiverse where Stan Lee just told Spider-Man stories as fiction. Like,
yeah, exactly. No, that's exactly what it's doing. Yeah, no, I didn't have an issue with like that being the kind of movie that they're watching, because I also thought that it kind of represented her kind of being back and forth, where even when she's in that universe, she's still kind of in the main one she's in, so it's like she's looking at it. But that was like what I thought at the time.
And I think they telegraph it in 1 or 2 places. I can't remember, but because like Connor was saying, there's so much going on in this movie. I think there's a bit or 2 where you've already seen a movie screen and you were looking at some of the movie through the eyes of viewers looking at a movie. I think that's happened already before we get to that.
I want to say it has once.
I think.
It's been too long, I can't remember.
Yeah, I'm sorry for making you guys watch or talk about this a month after you watched it, because I'm struggling to. Oh, okay, that's right.
Yeah, you had to
watch it right away.
Closer, but I also, this movie's really stuck with me. Like, it's really good. So like I haven't had really any issue being like, oh, like I don't really remember what happened.
Well, it keeps you thinking, and that's another reason that I keep relating it to The Matrix. Is this is the first time in a long time that I've had the same experience that I did with The Matrix when I was younger and more impressionable, and that was such a like brain teaser and mind freak. It was like, what if we did live in a simulation? Like that was the first time I'd had that thought, and I kind of had that with this a little bit, whereas like, I kind of feel that way myself sometimes, like Neo in the Matrix, like something's off with the world. This can't be the way things are supposed to be, and this is another one of those where it's like the evil version of her daughter has changed things, and the world is not the way it's supposed to be. Something's off, something's messed up. I meant to mention this earlier. Isn't it also really nice that the villain motivation is so much? I don't even want to say villain motivation, because like it's in that formula until you realize that's not what it is. But like we're told early on, yeah, she's just a nihilist. She just wants the end of all things, move on, and then it's a suicide attempt. I don't know. It's kind of brilliant. Just you wanting to destroy the entire multiverse because that's the only way that you can die, and you don't want to keep going anymore because you don't like that the world is the way it is, and it's not the world that you want it to be. And again, I don't want to get too personal, but that resonated with me.
Yeah, and what I really liked about this is that you kind of have them doing the I want to say comic book thing where it's the big emotional climax, powers are happening, lights are going, and they're voicing, oh, everything sucks, no it doesn't, but and they're voicing a lot that that they want to say, but there's also something that they left unsaid that I think the movie kind of speaks for itself that I really liked, which is, they use the black bagel to kind of simulate like the void. It could be literally anything, so it's an everything bagel. But
it's the nothing from the Never-Ending Story in reverse. It's everything.
And what I liked was that what the movie kind of leaves unsaid is, this nothing mattering, and it's always going. Eventually, everything will be bad again. Eventually, you'll get to a slump. Eventually, this will always be there. You only ever feel that way when you're low. When you're riding a high, you're never thinking, well, things won't be this good again, but then they will. You're only ever thinking about that in the inverse. And then having a family and having people to get you through those lows is kind of what life's all about. Like, that is amazing. And, I not to get too personal either, Cap, but families go through dark times, and I found that to be a really therapeutic. That's what Austin said. It's what cinema's about, right? It's about having these stories reflect your life back on you. And even though my experience is not these characters' experiences, it's made universal enough to where I can connect with it.
It's this bizarre, surreal, insane piece that's mining so much truth. You're just constantly nodding your head, going, "Yeah, like I've been there too. This is in places also what my life is like because it's universal." I've seen other movies that make this point. This handles it in one of, if not the most profound ways I've seen it, which is to say that nothing matters is not inherently a nihilistic notion. And with what you're saying, Connor, you can have that belief that in the grand scheme of things, nothing matters, or nothing you do matters, or you are insignificant to the greater whole of the universe, the multiverse, what have you, but not feel nihilistic except for when you're down, right? It's a glass half full, half empty proposition. You get I've never, like I said, I've never seen it handled this poignantly. You get to the end of the movie, and Michelle Yeoh, I think after part 3, where Michelle Yeoh says, Evelyn, she says, nothing matters, so we can do whatever we want. It's a positive statement at that point. In some ways, it's scary to think that there may be no grander purpose for you, but also how freeing is that idea, that, you're not actually beholden to anybody's expectations of you or the society's grander intent for you, or some sort of a destiny. This movie is anti-destiny in a way, where the thing, Neo as the one has to be Jesus and die for our sins. Michelle Yeoh as the one, at the end, winds up right back where she started in the first place. It's the inverse of the Matrix in that way. And also in the sense that there's absolutely no reason whatsoever to make sequels to this, and that will probably never happen. And there's nothing set up that we need to pay off at the end of this. Like, what if Neo became Thomas Anderson again and just went back to his desk at the end and realized that maybe that life wasn't as bad as he thought it was, and there's more to life than just just like how can you make yourself feel relevant. That she actually has everything she wants in the first place. Again, you've seen that a million times before, but it's
a Wonderful Life.
It's kind of more poignant here. Yeah.
I know. I wouldn't say more poignant than It's a Wonderful Life.
No,
it's definitely in that tier.
No, that's a good point. But I don't think the point of It's a Wonderful Life was this guy's life seems to, well, I guess sort of. I was going to say, like, there are things about that guy's life that seem like they'd be okay. I don't want to be her at the beginning of this movie. Like, they make me think that she has the absolute worst possible life, right? And then you start to see, but this is brilliant. You start to see the seams at the end, in a positive way. You go, oh, wait a minute. It's because, let me backtrack for a second. So the idea is she's got a husband who loves her. She has a daughter that, if only she would pay attention to her, wants to get along with her. All she wants is approval. And importantly, she actually has a lot of friends. She actually has a whole community of people that will show up to a party that she's throwing, and she takes all of that stuff for granted. At the beginning of the movie, looking at it through her eyes, it does such a good job of getting us in the mind of our protagonist. You think that she has the most dull, horrible, awful existence, and she actually doesn't. And you'd kind of be more on her side if everybody hated her, if like her life was like no fun at all, and she like, okay, I get why she's got all these hobbies. It's really the IRS thing I think is really funny. She's trying to write off like everything she buys because she wants them to all be careers, and that's not how that works. But like you'd be more with her if she had nothing going for her at all. And then you get to the end of the movie, and it's like, no, there was something there. Like, your life was not terrible. And one of the kind of saddest moments is when the version of her husband from another universe goes, yeah, I would just run a laundromat with you. Like, that would be a wonderful existence. Why can't we do that? And it threw me for a loop with that whole thing, because I was like, oh, she doesn't have the worst life imaginable.
Yeah, well, and that's in her Hollywood,
where everything's like glamorous and wonderful, and even he's super successful, and it's like, yeah, I would much rather just be with you running a laundromat.
And I'll bore everybody here, but like, look, I've not watched Wong Kar-wai films. I guess I'll tear a corner off of my cinephile card or whatever. I've seen enough clips to know when you have a dapper-looking man in a suit in Hong Kong smoking a cigarette in the rain while a green light's hitting him from one side, they're doing Wong Kar-wai. Bravo, that's really cool. I didn't expect to see that when the movie started. And him just dramatically saying, I would be happy just folding laundry with you. Wonderful, wonderful stuff.
I also really like the scene that she has.
I'm glad you knew about that, because that all went completely over my head just now. We haven't talked at all about how this is a kung fu movie, so I'm glad you went to that place. But yeah,
one of the best. Absolutely. I'm sorry, Matrix, move over. This has the better I know kung fu moment. It's so awesome. It's so.
The
good.
Matrix doesn't have a woman kick a dog around, so it's inherently.
It also has the better I'm not Thomas Anderson, I'm Neo moment. They do that too.
Yeah, that's right. Great.
The I'm your mother moment, like that's the my name is Neo moment. And I had that as I was watching it. I was like, wait a minute, what is she gonna say instead? Because she's not Neo, but they're doing that line. Like, that's the moment.
Yeah. Great.
You just keep peeling the layers back, and there's just so much more meat underneath. Like,
and we actually have been here for just about 2 hours.
Yeah, we're 15 minutes away, folks.
All right, Let's get there, buddy. Send in your super chats so we can get to 2 hours, ladies and gentlemen.
If anybody wants to ask us anything else about aspects of this movie or wants to make any more points about it yourselves, go ahead and leave some comments now, and last call for comments, and then we'll go ahead and wrap things up here. But I mean, there's obviously lots of other directions we could have gone, and I keep thinking of like thoughts that I wanted to say earlier that I can't remember what they were because there's just so many things to talk about. Like, I know I've missed stuff I wanted to mention, but yeah.
Yeah, so back to the whole just like a nice character moment between like the two of them. I really like the scene that she has with the IRS woman after she kind of flips out and is like, everything sucks. And it's when she's starting to realize like, okay, maybe like, you know, there is some optimism. And I really like, because I subscribe to the idea that every single person can relate to at least like one aspect. Like, you can walk up to anybody on the street and there is something that the two of you can relate to if you can find it. And I really like that you have the setup of this IRS woman who's like clearly, you know, wants to tear them down. Like, that's what she does. And you just have this moment where she's like, yeah, you know, I understand where you are. Like, I've had been hit with the divorce papers too. Like, I've been where you are. I understand the pain that you're going through, and that's why I'm willing to give you this like extra step. You know what I mean?
That's why the husband is Mr. Rogers.
Yeah, exactly.
Because that's what Fred Rogers was capable of doing. He could relate to any person by just listening to them and then talking to them. And like,
yeah,
he does exactly that.
Yeah, exactly. And I just like the scene where she's like, well, why did you do this nice thing for us? And it's like, okay, well, here is the way that we can relate and why I can understand why you're going through the issues you're going through. And that's especially because then obviously we get to the climax, which is how she beats all of the minions.
That's one of the reasons this movie is, I think, so important right now. Because you have this, I talk about this all the time, but like a really divided world where you have a lot of people who have the "if you're not with me, you're against me" mentality, and on, you know, whatever side of whatever issue we're talking about, like not wanting to give people the benefit of the doubt. You have a movie here that's all about at the end of the day, we're just not so different, and finding those kinds of commonalities.
Exactly. Like Angel Wing in the comment says, them kind of working out that thing with the IRS is very like just nuanced, genuine, and it's just kind of realistic. Like, you're just,
yeah,
you solved it by talking and you were nice to them. You know.
And this is not a movie that's about the internet, but we're in a world where people think about things like the real world and the internet are the same thing. And on the internet, it's very difficult very often to find common ground with people. And then you go out in the real world and you go, on an individual level, a lot of us really haven't lost that yet. And I say yet, hoping that that day never comes. Like, I want to be optimistic. I don't want to be cynical about this. But in the real world, what you're talking about and what happens in this movie does still happen. Where people from completely different worlds that ostensibly hate everyone and want to tear everybody down like the IRS lady does. There's still some humanity in there someplace. You can find it if you can just speak her language.
Yeah, exactly. We can all relate on something. If you can figure out the way in which you can with somebody, then you can talk to them and you can have, a conversation, and it's not just like, oh, you suck. Like, I think we've all had that person in our life that is the IRS woman at the start of the movie, and you just kind of go like, oh, that person sucks. I hate that person. I hate having to deal with that person. And then this movie kind of takes a step back and goes, yeah, there's still a person. You know what I mean? Like,
well, there's a reason that you have that basic tenet with modern convention of fiction writing that every protagonist needs to in some way be sympathetic, because in the real world, everybody basically is. If somebody is horrible, they didn't start out that way. They got there somehow. And so, like I always have to put in the caveat, because sometimes I'll say sympathetic, and people are like, but Cap, there are terrible people. Yes, but if you just write them that way, and I don't have any sense of how they got there, not meaning I need a backstory for everybody, but just some semblance of, okay, I see that there's still a person in there, but now they're awful. The IRS ladies like that. You peel that orange back, and there's still a soul in there someplace.
Hmm. Yeah, exactly. And I even like, because we haven't mentioned him yet, but James Hong is her father, who's great. I
Yeah.
mean, he's great in everything. He's like always awesome. But I really love that. That was Connor's jump scare. It finally happened.
I'm still here.
What is going on with your lights?
We'll be backlit.
I'm happy.
Okay.
Austin,
I'm sorry. I have
used to have
lights
light
and they're on
issues
batteries.
where like a light would go. Somebody that I do a lot of videos with would used to occasionally have light problems like this.
It was
you?
me until I
thought it
got
was.
I got like actual proper lights that I could plug in, because my light still to this day doesn't work. But yeah, and I
I
really
think
like.
we've seen Connor jump to a different universe every time that's happened.
True, yeah.
You know, we really missed an opportunity. I should have grabbed my brother to come in and get in my
Take your
spot,
place.
take my place for a second. Yeah, that would have been cool.
You should have just come back and been like, Cap, I'm your mother.
So like Connor's just replaced with some woman we've never seen before. It's like I'm Connor from another
No, it's his-
universe.
It's his I'm the one speech. He's like, no, I'm not Connor, I'm your mother.
Is
Cap.
anybody surprised actually now I'm thinking about it that one thing we don't do in this is ever have a gender swap person from another universe? Because that's a thing that you do in a lot of multiverse things. And of course even Loki did it. Like I was a little, now that I'm thinking about it, I'm a little surprised that we never go there with this. Not that we spend a lot of time in other universes, but it's never broached. I don't know if that can happen.
Yeah, I
don't know.
But I
That's
mean,
a
if
good
you could turn into
That
like
wasn't like a thing I was thinking
rocks
about,
and
but,
yarn
yeah.
and stuff, you'd think if you were a dude, you could be a girl. Like,
Or you can have really strong pinkies.
yeah, that's
was
great.
Amazing. Okay, I have a question. So that training montage is very clearly an homage to something, and I want to instinctively say Kill Bill, but I'm pretty sure in Kill Bill it's a reference to something else too. Is that Lady Snowblood? What is that? Chat, let me know,
It's the
because I've
Karate
seen.
Kid.
Is it the... You got me. You legit got me there for a second.
Okay, but now I want to
That's
see
the
wax
original.
on,
It's
wax
the-
off with hot dog fingers. Because just imagine
Yes!
the
Yes!
flipping around and
Yes!
the wax on.
That would be amazing. I would love that.
Yeah, it's just not the original Karate Kid. It's the one with Hilary Swank.
Tyler says, well, we have a finger-swapped version of the characters, so it's sort of that way. Well, and I guess you can have different sexual preferences between universes. But I'm just kind of surprised we didn't do it with, like, actual gender swaps.
And maybe that just kind of comes down to budgetary things, where it's like, maybe we can't hire an entire, like, 5 more characters that are just the alternate, like, gendered versions of these characters.
It's a hard thing to do visually without talking about it. And a lot of the weird switch things are just kind of visual gags.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Well, and then she doesn't switch like in universe, like at least with like the tapping thing. So it would just be she would just be herself, but have to act like a guy, and then you would cut back to that universe where she's a guy. It would be. I could see where it'd be like maybe awkward.
Yeah, that's a good point.
That's true. I loved the epilepsy-inducing, like, Michelle Yeoh at the center of the frame, and like.
Well, and
Oh,
that's what they sold it on. All the ads showed that stuff.
Did it? Okay, because I think I saw half of the trailer once, and I
Well, they sold this movie hardcore on like we gotta save the multiverse. Like that's kind of it. They didn't really let you know that this is a very personal movie and like
That's
a
cool.
small movie. It's like this is like the multiverse is in trouble. You gotta save it.
That's
Which
probably
was part
the
of my
only
like
way to
I
sell it
don't know.
now, but it didn't make me want to go. But I
Which is
mean,
what I had, yeah.
I'm in the 6% of people that thinks that Marvel is leaning too hard on multiverse right now. So like, what do I know? I don't know, the folks that they're trying to sell those movies to. In general, it's working. So I mean, like that's probably right now. That's probably the way to sell that.
And it should be said, this was produced by the Russo brothers.
Yeah.
So.
I think it is so fascinating and kind of ironic that I'm glad you brought that up, that the Russos produced this movie and very recently did an interview talking about how they think it's a misstep that Marvel is leaning so hard on multiverse. And, like, they jump ship before all of that. I would not be surprised to find that they're not 100% happy with even the way Endgame worked out, but that's neither here nor there. I don't know that for sure. But, like, they seem to have qualms with the direction Marvel's been going, at least since they weren't involved. And I think, they might have stuck around if people were still able to make movies like Winter Soldier. I don't want to spend this whole time just giving Marvel crap again, but it is just really interesting that people that either were involved with Marvel or might have been made this movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, absolutely.
And a month before Doctor Strange comes out.
It's
Yep.
true.
And it was still in theaters with Spider-Man.
Yeah. But, like, this right before a movie with the word multiverse in it is just really interesting timing. Mm-hmm. And will be difficult for folks that really liked this to not make comparisons to them. And I don't want to do too much of that, certainly, when that comes out, because that will be after different things, I am sure. But, I mean, like I always try to do, I want to take that on its own terms and whatever it's trying to accomplish and see how well it manages that. I certainly hope that it's more than just let's have a lot of fun movie cameos. I am much more open to that than some people because I think there's really cool creative ways you could do that and still tell a story. I don't think No Way Home handled that as well as it might have. And I know a lot of folks in our circles are very unhappy with how that movie turned out, and I don't like it either, but I like it better than, or like that aspect of it, I like it better than some of you guys. But I don't know. I want to have some hope that stuff will be handled better in Doctor Strange. I just hope that I don't leave that more disappointed because this handled it so much more thoughtfully than a big giant blockbuster is likely to handle multiverse.
And the way this movie made me feel, I'll probably be more forgiving if I don't like that aspect of the Doctor Strange movie.
Just because you got it finally.
I got it, and the movie did also give me the warm fuzzies, and I want to be. I think I can't remember which trade it was. I think it might have been IndieWire. They released like an article that was kind of about the wave of nice core cinema that had like Paddington 2 and other stuff like that. And I think this absolutely falls into that. It just makes me want to be nice to everything, and I like that feeling. I like it a lot.
Disney, cancel Indiana Jones 5 like right now. Start from ground zero. You give me a movie with Indiana Jones and Short Round, and then spin him off into his own movie series.
Or at least
that's all I want after this.
Or at least cast that guy as a lead in something. Give him his own movie. He's wonderful.
Well, he came out like a week after this came out, and he was like, "Yeah, I would love to do Short Round again. Like, it was great." and I don't want it now because it's Disney. I don't want the Disney Plus Short Round show now because I've seen their shows. Give me something good with him.
Austin, that what Connor just said reminded me of something I wanted to ask you about earlier, which is, don't you think, because weirdly on our request show, people have been requesting movies that are about some of the things that this movie is about. Like, I kept being reminded of things that we've talked about, like About Time. But another one was that Nicolas Cage movie we did a few weeks ago. That was called Family
Man.
And this earns that happy ending in a way that didn't. Did you have that thought?
I wasn't thinking about that movie, but absolutely. Because with that movie, it's just kind of like, I'm really only here for Nick Cage when he goes crazy, which that movie did give me a lot of, so I was happy with that.
But it's about some of the same
But
things
this
where,
one, oh no,
where it's
absolutely.
like
I just mean like
you've got to
comparatively,
learn
I'm
to
much more into this.
you've got to learn to appreciate a more air quotes mundane existence because it's the smaller things that really matter, and like money can't buy you happiness, and all of that. And it does kind of a fun inverse thing where it starts with a guy who's super rich, who it turns out only really wants a family, and he would actually put all that behind him if only he understood what he would get as a reward for that. But everything in that movie felt like it was leading toward a darker, kind of more cynical ending, and it kind of turns on a dime, and it gives you a more positive ending that I don't think it earned. And this, I was just shocked to be as relieved as I was that it was so optimistic at the end. I wouldn't have halfway through this thought it should be. And because again, you take everything on its own terms and what it's trying to accomplish. And this, you don't always know what a protagonist truly wants right away, and by the same token, you don't always know what a movie's after right away. And that can be problematic, but in this case, it was wonderful.
Yeah, exactly. And before Connor like went full blackout, I was going to mention too with the optimism thing. I really liked you have James Hong's character who Michelle Yeoh's kind of going through like every universe and finding like a point where everybody's happy, and she gets to him and is kind of like, oh, like we kind of have nothing, and because of that, that is why they do like that is the thing that makes them go like, oh yeah, like no, I have to help you. I thought that was really nice.
Paul in the comments says, my 13-year-old niece saw this and said it's better than Endgame and Infinity War. And that's
Yeah.
fascinating.
So Paul, go take your 13-year-old niece out for ice cream. Say Uncle Dagos told you you're getting ice cream for that one because you're a smart kiddo.
Okay, we are at that 2-hour mark somehow. Anything else you guys want to make sure that we say before we close up shop here?
Ladies and gentlemen, we got him.
Austin, I couldn't have done it without you, buddy. Thank you. But let's be real. He probably could have done it on his own.
Yeah. First, I want to thank Jesus. And just say I'm going to Disney World.
Well, Austin, thanks for getting me to go see this movie. I mean, like I said, I got messages from other people, but you're the main reason I went ahead and went, because you were like, this is too much for you. You're going to be missing something. And I should say, this was weirdly an important one to me to see in the theater, which I don't have with a lot of things anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And
I'm really glad, because my worry was that I was laying it on too hard, because I was like, Cap needs to see this movie, but I don't want to push it too hard.
I thought that 45 minutes in, I was like, I don't know if Austin knows me as well as you think. And then about the hour and a half point, I was like, whatever, Austin.
No, so it was the everything bagel joke where I was like, I've never read Douglas Adams, but everything I kind of know, I was like, that's a very Douglas Adams-y joke. And it reminded me of when Cap and I did the AVGN movie, and there's a joke like
Death Mosses. I was reminded of with
yeah,
some stuff
like,
with
what's
her.
the joke?
The sandwich.
It's like bologna sandwich.
The bologna sandwich. Yeah.
Yeah, because you were like, I love this joke, and I was like, that's it, like Cap's kind of thing. And then as it kept going, I was like,
with the bagel, it's the sandwich. Yeah.
I was like, that's also kind of Cap's thing. I admittedly thought you would like the Rakakuni thing better than you did, but that's whatever, because everything else I was right about. And then it got to the end, and it was like, this is the answer to every single thing Cap has been saying about Star Trek, like the entire time I've known him, where it's optimistic sci-fi, and everything's important, everything matters, everything's wonderful, we love it. And and I was really loving it, but at the same time it was like, I love this movie, but Cap will love this movie.
Yeah.
So I'm glad I was right.
It was an important
because
thing for me right when it happened. Well, anyway, Connor, do you have anything else you want to throw in before we? go on? Well, everybody, thanks a lot for watching our review, whether you're watching live or after the fact. We want to thank all the commenters and the super chatters. You guys are great. Thanks for spending your Sunday night with us. I want to say evening, but it's far too late for that. And sorry for the late start. But you guys are great for doing these crazy 10 o'clock, and later shows with us. We will see you again in about a week with some more stuff. I'm taking this week off, so I'm not going to be putting out any content throughout this week, but after that we'll come back with regularly scheduled stuff, probably, and we'll get back to requests and other reviews and things. Doctor Strange, I think, is this week, so I guess I'm not going to promise review Sunday. I may wait another week so that I can see it a couple of times before we do a spoiler cast. So I don't know that we'll rush that out. We did this with Spider-Man. We actually waited too long because I got sick and crazy things happened in my house. And so we were like 3 weeks late on that. It didn't hurt the interest or the view count on that video. So there's no reason to rush real hard. I think people will still care about what folks that care at all about what we have to say for whatever reason. Thank you guys so much. We'll still, I think,
doing this like
be
5
here in
weeks
2
late.
weeks. Yeah, and this went great. So yeah, sure. Thank you guys for your patience, I guess is what I'm saying. There will be a spoiler cast of some kind on Doctor Strange and Multiverse of Madness, be it next week or the week after. In the meantime, I was Captain Logan. We had Connor Nielsen. Connor, thanks so much for joining us, buddy.
As always, thank you so much for having me. It is always a pleasure.
And Austin, TheDayGhost.
I don't have Google eyes, but pretend that I do.
We'll see you later, folks.